Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this wonderful panel we're about to have here. I've just been told we've got 5 minutes less than we originally envisaged, but that's okay. I'm sure we can fit a compelling session in the meantime, as Ali runs across the stage. So the title of this panel is Financial Inclusion at the Sending Side, the Digital Breakthrough. My name is Cillian Clifford, as Pedro said, and I'm moderating today's session. I'm responsible for migrant financial and economic empowerment at IOM. Today we're going to have a look at the emergence of new digital products and the relevance of financial inclusion to their uptake, and in turn how that might drive financial inclusion on the receiving side as well. And we'll have a look at the barriers of those and how we might address that. I will introduce my panel in a second, but by way of introduction, we've been at the summit now a day and a half. We all know the reasons as to why remittances are important, particularly from a development perspective. By providing a stable source of income, they pay for basic necessities, pay for food, pay for health expenses, pay for education expenses, and all contributing to human capital development. As we know, half remittances go to rural areas, and within that, majority go to female-headed households, so they are empowering for women in that sense. And that portion of remittances that isn't spent on immediate needs, if you like, I don't like to use the word consumption, but we say immediate needs, and can be invested in the local community, potentially. And so these are all sustainable development goals in their own right, and that's why it's important as we lead up to the SDG Summit in September, and of course the Summit of the Future, also hosted by the UN next year. But as we all know, remittances have high costs, and they eat into these development possibilities. There's still a preference for cash and often informal channels for remittances on the sending side. But we're told consistently from DLIP's data yesterday that digital and mobile channels are the cheapest out there. But the proportion of remittances that goes over these channels, it's growing, but it's still relatively small compared with cash. So what can we do about that? How can we incentivize the use of these innovative digital products, and how can we link them to financial inclusion for both migrants and for recipient families? And what's stopping us from doing that? What are the barriers and how can they be addressed? So to discuss this, we have an esteemed panel assembled before you. On my immediate left here, we have Rafael Govnowski, I hope I pronounced that right, yes, who's co-founder and director of Mama Money in South Africa. We have Thomas Juul, CEO of InPay and also of Eurogiro, based out of Denmark. Following on from Thomas, we have Miguel Fernandez, COO of MoneyTrans. Hello to you. And that's a financial services app aimed at migrants. And finally, we have from CESPI, which is an Italian think tank on financial inclusion, we have Danielle Frigeri. So guys, I want to start by asking you about the innovative digital products that you've seen emerging or even have been responsible for developing. And really to hear about your journey from converting cash to digital remittances and then linking to other financial services. So Raf, if I might start with you. So Mama Money been on our radar now for quite some time. You have at least I know of the cash-based retail offering, but also a growing digital offering. So what's been your journey of converting migrants from cash to digital, and how difficult has that been for you?
Well, the journey has been long and arduous. First of all, I'd like to say good morning, habari za asubuhi to everybody. Thanks for coming to listen to us talk about remittances. So the journey started for us on a beach in Mozambique. 2 people sat together and decided to start a money transfer operator. We are called Mama Money because the majority of people send money to their mom, so we thought it's a pretty good name. I think in terms of digital journey, we were the first financial institution in South Africa to offer a fully digital onboarding. So we were really the first one to do it, and that was, I think, a big game changer for us. In terms of like our journey, I think we're really happy. The other day we signed up our 1,000,000th client, so that was a big milestone for us as a little startup. And we're on this big journey to try to digitalize the entire flow. So at the moment from South Africa, majority of payments still come in as cash on the receiving side, often get cashed out even if they go to a wallet. So we have been embarking on a journey to get everybody on our base and people who want a bank card and a bank account, because we see that 80% of the flows come in as a salary, so we're quite happy about that. And then people can send on the go using their digital platform. And in our world, I think what's been really good is that because we've been pushing this strong digital agenda, we have a very, very strong focus on cost. So we've been really at the forefront of cutting down the cost to send money out of South Africa by half. And I think it's made a big impact in terms of our send community and in terms of the receiving community.
But in terms of the individual migrants, if you want to say, but how difficult is it to get them from a behavioral perspective to move from cash, which they may have been used to kind of using a digital service?
I think that's a good question. So in our experience, nobody loves cash. Everybody hates having cash. So when we ask people, why are you getting this product from us? The number one reason is not safe to carry cash on the street. Like, it's not safe to have cash at home. We got a lot of security issues. Number two, it's not safe for me to have cash with my husband because he spends it. Second reason. It's true. And the third reason is I get to have access to my money all the time, and I can manage it from my phone. So those are the three main reasons. Interestingly enough, the main reason why people stop using our product is because they're not earning at the moment. It's our number one reason why people leave the digital product. It's just because they don't have an income. So I think, when we talk about digital inclusion and financial inclusion, for us, I think the biggest driver is if you're earning and you're earning well or regularly, you want a digital product. You don't want to live in cash. So I think that's been our big driver. We're really focusing on access and convenience and cost. Those are big three drivers. I can talk about the send on the receiving side too. I mean, I could talk for an hour, but these guys also.
Yeah, and there are other people on the panel.
Yeah.
We'll come back to the receiving side in a second, but Miguel, maybe if I could turn to you. So on money trans, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe unlike Ray from Mobile Money, Mama Money, you did not start out with a cash service, or you don't have a cash offering, but tell us a little bit more about your journey from creating money trans from a remittance offering to embellishing it with other financial services for migrants, and how easy is it to convert them to those other financial services?
Thank you, Killian. Well, first of all, good morning to everyone. I'd like to just point out that as opposed to Mama Money, Money Trans is more like a legacy money transfer operator. So we've been in the market for 20 years. So we've been very used to our customers preferring cash as a means of payment. So over the last 20 years, we've amassed a very big customer base. So our main challenge is not starting with a digital offering, is educating our customers to move them to use digital means. In our particular case, we've done it in different ways. We really believe that you cannot impose digitalization on our customers, on the people. We need to accompany them, we need to educate them, we need to explain to them why it will be possible, what incentives they may have, and it has to be a transition that we know that our cash-based customers are going to take years to do. There are some customers that will never be converted. There are customers that can be converted, but it has to be hand in hand with the customer. So what we've tried to do, first of all, I see the low-hanging fruit, was to increase the amount of card payments that we would get from our customers. In our case, we're based in mainland Europe, so the cash concerns or security concerns that, for example, Rafael has in South Africa are non-existent. So we knew that also access to bank accounts is there, but we had lots of customers who would really cash out their money next door and would come with the cash because for them that's the real money. It varies by jurisdiction, by country. We see that a lot with our African customers, that they really is, first of all, the paper is the real money, and then the relationship that I have with you because I go to the shop and I know you and I've done it 15 times and I know that if I give you the money, it gets to my mother back in Congo, Morocco, etc. The trust of the physical interaction is there. So first we started with cards, then we started our digital offering, just a digital remittance, And then we actually thought that the best way to digitalize, to tackle digitalization and financial inclusion for our customers was to offer current accounts. We're not a bank, but we are members of SWIFT. We are issuing our own accounts. We work with MasterCard's payment scheme. We have our processor. But basically, we are issuing our current accounts. And via those current accounts, we are offering either embedded services or bundles that are only available through the digital offering, like insurances, tailor-made for migrants, so not like a car insurance or a fire insurance. We are offering utilities payments. We are working right now in microfinance solutions, such as buy now, pay later. So perhaps migrants that need to send a larger sum for a specific type of event, something has happened, then maybe they're used to send 200 euros, but if you don't have 1,000 euros, $1,000 to send, we would like to give you the facility to say, okay, well, no worries, you can pay this in 4, 5, 6 installments, and then we facilitate the fact that you don't have to stop the flow, or you don't have to basically stop or send less than your family requires at that particular point in time.
Okay, so in terms of chicken and egg, which comes first, financial inclusion or digital, you've used the, I guess, the incentive of a current account and the incentive of being financially included properly to push people to convert them to digital, it sounds like, at least.
Yes, and also, of course, through the current account, then you have access to, you are able to, for example, transfer your salary onto your account. Many countries in Europe require, for example, if you need to pay rent or utilities, they require you to have some sort of direct debit. So they don't allow you the freedom to pay as you go. And it also works as a you can save money, so it's a storage value. It allows you to have some sort of credit history. And we also know, and this is a very important part, that the customers that we have right now is not customers that high street banks in Europe find profitable. It's very hard, especially now in these inflation times, it's very hard to make them use products that the banks consider profitable, like loan or mortgage. So for us, it's very important that they feel that we are not discriminating them, that we speak their language, and our financial offering, our bundle, means to integrate them into the financial system.
Thanks for that. Thomas, just move on to you now. I suspect you might talk with your Eurogiro hat on. Maybe with reference to the project you're working with IFAD, if you can talk about that yet. But what do you see as the importance of financial inclusion to digitizing remittances, at least in the SEND side?
Yeah, so I think it's been really interesting to listen this morning, and thank you so much to all the other panelists, and thanks for the invitation here. I think that it's important to, at least for me, to understand that technology is not an issue. I would even go as far as some of my competition, or whatever we call us, would probably not like me for saying this. I don't even think that cost is really the talk that we should have anymore. Arranging digital transfers across the globe is not expensive anymore. Together with IFAD and together with our partner Postbank Uganda, we have proven that you can send money from Europe into Uganda for less than 2%. So we're already below the target of United Nations. The real issue becomes, how do you get, in the ends, how do you get money in and how do you get money out? That's really the issue, and I'll keep away from the money out as we're on the SEND side in this panel. But it's really about how do you trigger people to go into that digital system that you have found a way of doing already in your business. And for me, I think that what we've learned is that somehow creating the trust and somehow creating the accessibility into that system is a driver. I'm so fortunate that I live in a country that has one of the highest digitizations in the world. Everybody has the right to a bank account, and actually also obliged to have one, because otherwise you can't interact with the government. And I think that actually takes away a lot of the issues we have. And I think that as we look through what's going on with all the different players that are speaking here today and yesterday and tomorrow, it's really about how do you ensure that you bring down those barriers, because then I think you will get a much higher uptake, and people will get the trust that they need to be in the digital system.
But does that trust, it's not just really on the send side, is it? You kind of have to create trust on the receiving end as well. And maybe if Denmark is a country that's fully banked, maybe the issue with trust doesn't really side with on the send side at all, but more what's happening, say, on the receive end in Uganda in your instance.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting discussion, because in order to do what we've done together with IFAD, we've looked at what would be the cheapest way of doing things. And as I said, technology is there, the corridors are there, we know we can do it. So it's really about what do people want to use and what's easy and what's accessible. And there I think we find that the marginal cost, if you want to call it that, the cost at the ends is really what drives the uptake. We have very low success rates at this point in time because of the uptake of the receive end. We don't think that there's an issue to get people in on the send end if we have enough people at the receive end that actually wants to use the service.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a second, because I think it's an interesting discussion to tease out, because we do talk a lot about converting to digital remittances, and maybe a lot of our efforts are focused on the send side, but really perhaps the issue is more on the receive end. Thomas, if I can turn to you. Sorry, not Thomas, but we've just spoken to Thomas, but sorry, Daniele. We've heard about from the guys here on converting from cash to digital remittances, but you've worked with migrants on the ground in Italy. So what's the connection you see between financial inclusion and remittances, recent sending behavior from their perspective? And what do you think are the barriers stopping them from taking up digital services?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. Just if you can put, I just prepare some data coming from our experience as a research center. We do annual survey on the from one side on the financial operator, on the other side on the on migrants. But to answer your question, I think is important starting from one point that for me is very important. We have to put remittances within the broader process of income allocation. So only starting from this, remittance is part of a broader allocation that regards income. So looking at the Italian data, it's very interesting because 27% of the income is savings, and only 18% of these savings go as remittances. So why it's important is because this is the real link between, from my point of view, between financial inclusion and remittances, and the opportunity that financial inclusion can improve the effectiveness of remittances. If you look at this process of income allocation, it's clear that financial inclusion can improve a lot the efficiency of this allocation. And financial inclusion can allow a bigger ownership of the saving. The ownership of the saving is one of the most important issue. Talking also with migrants, they lose the final use of remittances. So how to improve this element? And then there are a lot of other elements. The impact in terms of multiplier effect on savings and credit in both countries, sending and receiving country, when the remittances become part of the financial system, and also they reduce the vulnerability of the people. Just a few reflections coming from this data. As you can see, the Italian in Italy, the percentage of adults, migrants adults with a current account grow up very quickly. In 10 years, we start from 60% and now we arrive at 90%. But at the other side, the financial inclusion in the receiving country, well, the older, the migrants that holds a current account in the receiving country is not growing. So this is one of the issue for which we look at the Okay. This is another. If we look at the different channels, the use of different channels from the sending channels and the receiving ones, we can see how financial inclusion in Italy helps to change the behavior. It's a process, of course. We are not at the end. You can see that the cash is still on the receiving side, the main channel of receiving, and the digital channels start from 3%, 5% in 2016 and arriving 13% in 2022. But it's very interesting to see how digital channels grew faster in the receiving side. This is very, very interesting. Banks, of course, the role of banks of the current account network opportunity to send by current account grow a lot. Another data that I think interesting to just to show and comment is this one about investments. This is the percentage of migrants that has already used remittances for investments in country of origin, and 18% and 10% they want to realize some investment in the next 2 years. And another interesting issue is that there is a positive correlation between financial inclusion and investments in the country of origin. Among this, the people who has already done some investments, 97% of them has a current account in Italy, and 94% of them has a current account in the country of origin. So this is now how financial inclusion can make the difference.
Daniel, just to clarify, so if 94% have a financial account in Italy, you're saying that those same people on the receive side have their own financial account in the receiving country, or is it their family or whoever they're sending to has that financial account?
When we talk about financial inclusion, Italy is migrants living in Italy with a current account. When we talk about the channels, yes, means that the sending is from a current account to another current account.
Okay, but who's the owner of the current account on the receive side?
If you look at the channels, the owner is the people receiving. It's not always. This data refers to the older. Sorry. Okay, this is the migrants holder current account in the country of origin. It means that I have two current accounts, one in Italy and one in my country. But looking at the channels of remittances, no, the figure is different. Just last, another point that is quite important. Looking at the financial inclusion of migrants in Italy, there is another element. There is an ongoing process of protecting and accumulating the saving. So the current account holder that own an investment products and insurance products grow up very quickly in Italy in the last 10 years. They increased by 20% the investment products and 10% the insurance products. Why is it important from my point of view this? Because this means that the groundwork is being ready to introduce more advanced financial products for migrants, also in terms of investments in the country of origin. And there is an opportunity to link between different financial products also through the operators in the country of origin. This is, I think, another important issue.
Thanks, Daniele. So, the picture we're getting here is often migrants seem to be financially included, at least on the send side. but not necessarily always taking up. There's a bit of friction taking up the digital remittance channels potentially. So beyond financial inclusion, just quickly, maybe you three here with business experience of it, what other barriers do you see beyond just being financially included? I'm financially included, but I still don't want to take up digital remittances as a migrant. Why is that? Why might that be? Raf, I could just come to you immediately.
So I think there's a lot of different scenarios. I wouldn't say the migrant community is very homogenous. So I think if I start on the receiving side, you know, the biggest complaint that we get is the cash out fees. So the money might arrive digitally or it might arrive in the bank, but as soon as it lands there, people swipe it. You know, I don't think we have that problem here in Kenya because Safaricom is so ubiquitous. But if you talk about the possibility with other mobile wallets, you know, the money goes into the mobile wallet because it's a receptacle, but then it just gets cleared. So I think it's the biggest, from a customer perspective, it's the biggest complaint to say, yes, I'm sending to a wallet, but the cash out fees are high, and the customers think we are the ones charging it. So I think the uptake to make it really digital on the receiving side is you need to be able to spend your money digitally. And I think there's big things about rent, school fees, you know, basic consumption that cannot be paid digitally. And that, I think, is a big concern. Similar on our side, on the sending side, people take the money out because they need to pay rent, they need to pay for schools. It's just not that easy to accept digital payments everywhere across the continent. So it's cool for us. We're really excited. And we also, we really want to thank GFRID for helping us roll out this product. But if people can't spend the money digitally, they're going to cash it out. If people can't spend the money digitally on the receiving end, they're going to cash it out. So I think it's really about, we can really help on the journey, and for us it's great because, you know, we really think about cost and we can help. Digital really brings the cost down, and if on our product, when you send off our digital product, it's going to be even cheaper than you pay with cash. So we're really trying to incentivize to say, cool, if you pay with cash, it's going to cost you this, but if you pay from your digital product, it's going to be less. So that's we're really trying to drive that agenda, but it still means on the receiving side, I think the majority of people cash that money out.
Okay, so it really points to the importance of having some sort of a digital ecosystem for payments underneath. I mean, does that echo what your experience, Thomas?
Absolutely. I think what Raphael is saying here is exactly the same that I said. The cost is at the ends. Because we can count the cost of remittances, but we need to count the cost till the money is actually spent. And that is a totally different number. And that drives different cost. What we can see, and again, I'll refer to the project we're doing as Eurogiro with IFAD and Postbank Uganda and Posta Uganda, where we actually find that even though we offer a cash out service, it's actually also about how is it accessible, what's about distribution, what about, you know, and actually to the level where by offering it cheaper, we've even offered to pay the fees, it's not accepted anyways, because we don't have the distribution, we don't have the accessibility. And what Raphael says here, I think, is spot on. It is about when you need them, how do you get them out? You don't want to have to travel, you don't have to want to have to do anything. And if that is expensive, that's okay, or at least accept it.
Is there I mean, I think from Eurogiro's perspective, we're talking about post offices here mostly, but is there a digital solution that post office could adopt on the pay side, or how easy has that been from your experience?
Well, I think that there's so much happening, right? I think it's more about how do you get to those individual solutions in different places. I think that the evolution of the wallets in Africa over the last 10, 15 years is actually a big part of the answer. I think the other part of it is really how do you get integration at the receive end? Because, as I said, I mean, we're working with post offices, but we're also working with banks, we're working with wallet providers and so on, MTOs. But really making sure that the integration is there, that's what we can do, but at the same time making sure that you actually educate people to understand what is the cost of the different channels, not just the visible cost, but also the end cost of getting money where you want them to be.
So there's some, an awareness program that needs to be done both send and receive side, it would appear, on that front. If I may come to you as well, Miguel, on a similar issue, do you find from your long experience now within the industry, as your sense like migrants, if you like, but if they are adopting increasingly digital channels. Are you seeing the payout options on the other side change from less cash to more paying into banks, paying into wallets? Is uptake of digital services on the send side, is it driving, do you think, financial inclusion on the receive end?
Yes, thank you. I think, yes, it's good that we differentiate. I can give you a little bit of background on the send side because there are certain differences that prevent some of the customers to get to go digital, and they can be cultural, they can be generational. Generations that are just too old and they will never switch. So those generations just need to, they will exit the market at some point. There's also a certain amount of mistrust that our customers, not all of them, of course, that they have about digital means. They either don't understand it or they think it will be means of control or loss of privacy, those sort of things. On the receiving side, the main pain point, like Raf said, is, okay, you have a digital remittance sent to you on your mobile phone and you still need to cash out. So there is a lack of ecosystem. I do believe that where the ecosystem is right on the receiving side, if the remitter on the sending side has switched to digital, the spillover to the digital on the receiving side will be much easier because it will be actually the sender, in my belief, that will be doing that sort of financial education and say, hey, why are you collecting cash still? Look, download this app because then you have a QR code or something and you can go to the supermarket and plus it. But for that, I think there is, the problem that we have right now is not really last mile, it's last meter. How do you solve the fact that, okay, you have received a remittance on a bank account or a mobile phone or something? How do you avoid the cash out part, which is the major pain point? Yeah.
And Daniele, I mean, can you make that link, do you think, between behaviors you're seeing? Can you have a direct correlation, do you think, between uptake of digital services, say from remittance services in Italy, to adoption of financial services or an increasing financial inclusion on the payout end?
Yeah, it's a big issue because what we see is that there is, from one side, a lack of education, financial and digital education, that are the two sides of the same coin, and also, this is a lack of financial education, but there is the need of education training also among the operators. They need trainings how to interact with migrants in terms of financial inclusion, because there are differences between migrants and the population. What we have seen is very interesting because after the COVID, of course, the digital channels grow strongly in Italy, but it seems that based on the data that the operators showed, it seems that the digital channels reach a top. Around 10–15% of the flows. And if you look also at the digital approach of migrants, 98% of migrants has a tablet or a phone, but only 30% use it for financial operation. So there is a lack of education, but there is also probably something connected what you said, Miguel, about the trust in physical relationship. That is still important. And then from the migrant side, another issue, important issue, is the ecosystem at the receiving countries. The need for different products that help to destinate the remittances to specific issue, education, health, etc. They need to connect, the the sending side to the receiving side in this sense.
Raf, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, I think he said something really interesting there, which is about like using your digital channels for your financial services. And we're like, we're going to build this cool app, and it's going to look super cool, and everyone's going to love it. And then we actually launched our entire banking journey on WhatsApp, and everybody uses that. People are not interested in apps because it's data heavy, it's too expensive, and people who are not natural English speakers or struggle with literacy, they learn the numbers. They just go, cool, in order to do this, number 2, number 3, number 8, I'm done. Which is quite funny because when we change the numbers around, chaos. So now we've stopped, we don't touch it. Even though I think the ordering is really stupid, now it just causes too much problems. But we've found, as soon as we launched everything on a WhatsApp basis for our financial services product, people love it. App, forget about it.
Right, so it's the friction that's built into a complex product design as much as anything else can stop people from uptaking it. I mean, I remember from experience working a few years ago with GSMA, there was a big push to try and convert people from personal payment accounts, P2P accounts, to merchant accounts, and no one would do it. Not in the markets. It was just easier, far simpler to use a personal account, even for merchant payments. So, which points, I guess, to the stickiness and design and making it easier for people to use these products in the first place. So maybe it's not all about migrant financial inclusion or even digital inclusion. I would like to turn to the audience. If you have any questions, I'll please raise your hands, but or at least have a think about it while I'll kind of run through the panel and ask them maybe what they think is the best way forward in converting to increase. If we take Daniele's figures at face value, 10 to 15% of remittances from your MTO services are only over digital channels and has stalled since the COVID uptick. I don't know if that's your experiences as well. You can maybe come in on that. But given that relatively low uptake, and given that it may have peaked, maybe temporarily, how can we push things forward? Maybe Thomas, I'll ask you first.
Ooh, that's a tough one, because I think that's the one we're all struggling with, and that's why these challenges exist the way they do. I first want to just take a quick chance to comment on you, Miguel. I totally agree on your experience on once you get the sender digitized, then you basically have also education at the receive end. But we see as that the uptake on actually wanting to go back into the old cash system is actually quite small. So it's low. So it's something that
once they're converted, they don't want to go back.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it is about how do you get to that stage where they actually want to stay in that, and then back to your point, it's of course then a question of, is there something that does not accept your digital currency? Then you have to take it out as cash, and I think that's really the thing. So driving those systems into actually being available everywhere, I think is a key element. It has happened some places. I think the transformation that's happening here is relevant, but I think it's also about the way we look at it, or the way we talk about it, is really there are two different types. There are many, but there are two sort of distinct parts. There are the ones that are not included and that are very difficult to reach. We see them, for instance, in the ones that actually ask a friend to do the remittance and then give them the cash, right? That they exist everywhere. Then they turn into whatever we call these kinds of systems that then become more standardized. That's the one, and the other end is the ones that are actually converted, and I think they stay. So I think the real, for me at least, the real driver is how do we get to the right people to get them to start using, because then they will be there. And then I think we'll start seeing the uptake again that we saw during COVID, because you didn't have the choice. So that's how I would look at it. Go and educate people where they are.
Miguel, how do you affect behavior change in that way? Educate them? Is that all, or do we change behaviors in other manners? How do we incentivize it? Is there fiscal incentives or monetary incentives, or how can we do this?
Yes, actually, yeah. I mean, the good part of still being a legacy MTO is that we are pretty retail heavy, which means that in order to propagate information amongst a customer, it can be done face to face. which, like we mentioned before, it's for our customers, it's important, but it's the long road. So yes, once you are into, at least with money transfer, into our digital environment, there's an economical incentive, of course. I think we have around an average of 20 to 25% rebate on the price, but it only happens on the digital side. So when you initiate, of course, in this particular case, we are kind of cutting the middleman on the send side, which could be a physical agent, but that's the physical agent, that's a discussion for another day. And in that way, we can always, we can actually give that rebate permanently. So aside from all the other advantages that you have while being digitalized, you do have an economical incentive. But I'm still convinced that the way to go, at least for companies like us, is repetition, financial education, and just keep repeating until, and in a few years when some of the ecosystems on the receive side have, or at least have improved, then that would be easier. But I don't think it's, I personally don't think there is a shortcut for this. Yeah.
Any questions from the audience on relation to financial inclusion, remittances, and digital inclusion? Hands to be raised. Have to think about it and come in. Gentleman at the back. If you can just introduce yourself and let us know what your question is.
Hi, thank you. I'm Dr. Charles Miner. I run an organization called the Guardian Center. We focus on track, trace, and rescue of stranded migrant workers. When they're not stranded, their second biggest problem, of course, is remittances. I just wanted to confirm, did Raphael say that they have a platform that works across WhatsApp for money transfer? Thank you.
I think that might be for you, Ralph. How does your service work over WhatsApp? I think might be the quick summary of that question.
It's actually not that fancy. So WhatsApp offers integrations, and you build a little bot, and essentially the WhatsApp becomes your front end. So the entire journey is essentially as if you're chatting to someone, but instead of a human, you just get a little response. But you can do the entire journey, onboarding, check your balance, get a statement, send money, change your PIN, all the security aspects, everything works on WhatsApp. I can show you if you want. Free consulting, no worries.
I'd certainly take that offer up if I were you. Anyone else in the audience? Particular question at this stage? Okay, have a think about it. We'll come back. You know, just to come back to that behavior change question, how beyond digital education programs, I mean, how do we incentivize? Is there, if you take away the cash out agent on the receive end, does that allow you to lower prices, and could that be an incentive potentially to convert people?
I mean, we can try to educate all day until we're blue in the face to say, the cash out fees, that's not our fee, that's on the wallet, you know, go complain to MTN about it. But it just doesn't work that way, you know. So like, I think the ecosystem, getting people to accept more digital payments, that's definitely the biggest one. And I think it's what people want. I mean, we saw it here in this country. We've got some very progressive regulators sitting over there, my friend Ken. And so, for example, on our side, you know, you said, I don't know if there's anyone from the South African regulator here. Please raise your hand. No, great. So it took us is there someone? Okay, just don't listen for this one. Just hold your...
Careful what you say.
Careful, just earmuffs for this one. Great, thank you. It took us 3 years to get the approval to launch this product. It took us 3 months to launch our first bank card. So just put that in perspective. So I think easier access, more competition, it will drive down the price, it will increase innovation. We can do cool stuff with WhatsApp. You know, Facebook is not the enemy. So I think that part, we're very product-led. You know, we think if the product is good, it's what people want, it's easy to access, you know, it's minimal KYC, and it's low cost, I think people will use it. At least that's what we're hoping.
Fair enough. So there's a question over here. you want to introduce yourself and ask the question? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen, and I work with Stanbic Bank. So what I've noticed is that most governments across Africa have seen the rise in digital transactions and have zoomed in terms of taxing such transactions. And I think this is an impediment in terms of getting people on board to use these channels. So in your view, what do you think government needs to do in terms of scaling back on taxing these transactions and getting people to sort of on board?
Oh, okay. Do you think, I didn't expect the conversation to go down this way. Did we think that taxation is an issue? And there used to be an area I worked on when in my former career, but from a remittance perspective, is taxation a issue from a migrant looking to send remittances? Does it add significantly to the cost? I know we've had mobile money taxation in a number of countries in this region, in fact throughout Africa, but that's specific to mobile money. But from an MTO perspective, are you seeing issues around tax? Now's your chance.
No, but I think it's also important to say that if taxation is an issue, why is that then? It's because it's otherwise done without taxation and it should be, or I'm not sure I fully sort of follow that. Actually, if I can, I'm not sure if that is full answer, but I don't think that is the issue. I think that is more about actually following the regulation that exists. But if I can just latch on to Raphael's, I'm actually going to save a lot of you some money now. We have, to test out how you get more penetration, we have actually lowered our fees to 0%, and we've offered to pay 10 euros to anybody who wants to use a specific service. It doesn't work. Nobody takes it. It's back to Raphael's point. It has to be solving a real problem. It has to be useful in the long term. It has to be, reaching what you want to reach. Financing it or sponsoring it for a while doesn't really help.
Okay, thanks for that. So, Daniele, maybe we'll relate the question from the floor here to maybe bringing your perspective as a think tank that works, I guess, between migrants, between MTOs, and between government as well. So what is the role, would you say, at a policy level or working with the public sector or the state to use remittances to drive financial inclusion, or how can we drive financial inclusion to drive the uptake of digital remittances, which we perceive to be cheaper and safer and more convenient? So what's the role really here for public sector and for international organizations, I guess, like mine?
Yeah, it's quite difficult to answer. What I can say, it's part of the Italian experience, because I believe that there is what I call a pre-competitive field in which different stakeholders can meet and try to find a systemic approach, a systemic intervention. What we realized in Italy was we created two different multi-stakeholder interinstitutional tables, one on remittances and one on financial inclusion. Inside the table is composed by governments, the ministries, by the regulation authority, Bank of Italy, and the operators, the MTOs, banks and postal office system, and CESPI as a scientific advisor. What's the point is, first, the idea is to bring in data on this table, discussing the data and discussing the issues, the problem, the barriers, the opportunities that are the data, how is evolving the process, and then try to identify common, a systemic approach. That is part of a pre-competitive field. Then each one go ahead to make the homework, but it's very important also to create a common understanding that is of the issue of the phenomenon. That is part of the understanding and finding the right solution. I think that this is could be is a way. It's not the way, but you have seen the results coming from the two tables are quite interesting. We grow up the financial inclusion 20%, and we reduce cost of remittances by more than 2.7% in Italy, thanks also to this opportunity.
Thomas and Miguel, I'll come to you next. I mean, given the barriers we've addressed or identified today, is there a role for public sector? Is there a role for you guys working with public sector beyond, I would say, having your regulators for their licensing processes, but approval processes, but looking at other areas within government? Is there a way to collaborate potentially on financial inclusion programs, digital inclusion, or any other way that we could address the barriers we've identified today? Thomas?
Yeah, I can start, and Miguel, you can jump in. You have a lot of experience here as well. So what we find is that, and I have to start by saying that I was really encouraged by the session just before on regulation, so I won't dive into that. But I think there was a very fundamental issue there, which was, are we rule-based or are we actually more practical around it? And I think there's a lot of work to be done on how do you take policy implementation into use. I think, for instance, working with regulators to make sure that you could have different limits. You could have different limits to how much can you actually remit before it gets under, certain regulation. How many can you send? And I actually want to say that, again, back to technology not being an issue, we track what every individual that sends through our system sends on a monthly, on a yearly, on a daily basis in terms of how many, how much money, what's the volume, who's the recipient, and we can track all that. And I'm sure everybody in this ecosystem can do that. So that's not really a barrier anymore. It's more about coming to a conclusion on what is a limit that we can all live with. How could we create a system in which it's possible to be in this remittance space? The average volume for us for a transaction is actually around $100. So that could easily be treated without having to treat financing of weapons or something like that, because that's not done with $100. So I think that could be a cooperation that could very quickly lead to improvement.
Yeah, okay, and actually that was an interesting session that did come before, and I was struck maybe that actually regulators, perhaps in this part of the world, are a bit more progressive in their risk-based approaches to accounts and tiered KYC. But that's a different panel. But it did strike me as actually most of the issues would appear to be on the send side rather than on the receive side in that regard. Miguel, I'll just hand over to you on that one. I mean, what sort of collaboration could you envisage between yourselves and the government, public sector, international organizations to make this journey a lot easier for everybody?
Well, I think, yeah, governments have definitely, regulators have a big role to play here. And I'm going to go on a limb here and say that there's also, going back to the panel that we had before about de-risking, before going into the details, they have to make sure that MTOs are protected from the de-risking, from that risk, because we've been talking on all these panels about remittance being a lifeline, that the costs have to go down, but the truth of the matter is that, at least from a European perspective, it's impossible to open a bank account even if you have a license. You're being de-risked, and once you're de-risked, you're debanked. And once you're debanked, and if it happens to enough companies, then all those flows that have been flowing towards emerging economies will go to the black market.
Okay, so Thomas, very briefly now, because time is up. So in 30 seconds.
United Nations can actually help here as well. If we could create a white list of organizations that have actually gone through some kind of qualification, we would be able to much easier find out who can we cooperate with and how can we get accepted, because that would actually solve a lot of these issues.
So a new UN risk-based agency, which I'll put my hat in to lead, actually. Okay, thanks for that, guys. Thank you for panel today. So we've discussed the link between digital financial inclusion driving uptake of digital remittances. It seems, despite my preconceptions, is that financial inclusion is not a barrier on the send side to uptake of digital remittances. Most people already are financially included. more to do with the fact that on the receive end, the payout end, the lack of the digital ecosystem, a lot of the lack of the payout options other than cash is really what's often holding this back. So development of a digital ecosystem and digital inclusion on the receive end is maybe where we should concentrate our efforts. And we could all work together, perhaps more closely with the public sector, with international organizations and with the private sector here to raise awareness of the opportunities for digital channels, obviously on the send side, but more especially, I think, on the receive side, and always make the case for more enabling regulations, which we all do, I think, all the time, and try to avoid as much as possible today, but we squeeze it in at the end. So thanks everybody for a great panel, and we won't keep you for your lunch. Thanks, bye.